heal a heart that hurts. I want to spend my life mending broken people. I want to spend my life mending broken people. Hello friends and welcome to 3ABN. This is Thursday night. That means this program is live. And so thank you for taking the time to tune in. And you may be wondering, should I watch or should I change the channel? If you're watching, if you're listening, let me encourage you. This is a program you do not want to miss because it's dealing with two things that are so paramount in the Christian relationship: prayer and relationship, and so many other areas that are related to those two words that will give you not only understanding, but will broaden your walk with Christ and unlock some things that may have been unanswered to you thus far. And so stay tuned for this program. You do not want to miss it. The first hour, we'll be introducing you to our guest and talking about the topic. And then in the second hour, we'll give you a chance to send your questions and your comments so that we can hopefully respond to those questions in harmony with God's will. And I don't often do this, but I want to just go ahead and meet our guest right now, Pastor Pavel. Good to have you here tonight.
My privilege to be here.
Yes, yes. I understand you are not a new person to 3ABN. You've been here before.
I've been, yes.
So welcome back.
Thank you.
And we'll get to know you in just a few moments here and let our audience that's watching and listening to the program become more familiar with you before we dive into the program. And we talked about the topic prior to going on the air, and I am excited about it, because as a pastor of 29 years, we can always learn more, and I know the Lord is going to be involved very much in this program. And so get your Bibles, friends, because a lot of times we are going to make some references to Scripture so that maybe you want to have a pen, and we'll give you information on how to contact us also. Tonight we're going to have a free offer, which is Teach Us to Pray. Everyone needs to know how to pray. And for your copy tonight during the program, you'll call us here at 618-627-4651 for a copy of this booklet, or you can write us at freeoffer@3abn.org. Teach Us How to Pray, put together by my good friend and pastor friend, Pastor Doug Batchelor. And we'll also give you the question phone number as well as the email in just a few moments. But we have some music. You know, Pastor, we always have some music. And tonight, Jerry Lynn Mendenhall is going to sing a song entitled If There Was Ever a Time, and after her song, we'll come back and you'll meet our guest, and then we'll dive into the program. Enjoy the message.
If there ever was a time I needed you before, Lord, I need you now. If there ever was a friend who always kept his word, Lord, I know it's you. For there's never been a time that you left me all alone. So I'm leaning there ever was a time I needed you before, Lord, I need you now. If there ever was a friend, Lord, I know it's you. And I need you now. I need you now.
Thank you so much, Jerry Lynn. That song, if there was ever a time that we needed the Lord, it really is now. And that's true every day when you think about it, because every morning we awake, it's a new opportunity to connect with our Lord. There will never be a day when you are alive that you do not need the Lord. And that's what makes this program so vitally interesting. It's about prayer and relationship, two, I would say, powerful, essential ingredients in the relationship that every one of us has as Christians with our Heavenly Father. And thus, thank you so much for being here, Pastor Pavel Goya. Am I saying that correctly?
Correct.
Those who are listening to our program and watching our program, just give us a little bit of your background. Where are you from and what do you do right now?
So I am originally from Romania.
Okay.
You can hear my accent. Actually, I say I don't have an accent. Everybody else does. And we have been here in the States for 17 years now, actually in May. And I'm the pastor in Lexington, Kentucky.
Okay. And so even all that time you've been in the United States, you still haven't had a dent in your accent. But you learned English, though?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm sure that there's been a difference in your English between 17 years ago and now.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. There was no English then.
There was no English then, just kind of like a little bit. Hello, hi, goodbye. I'm glad you've changed, though, because tonight we talked about some of this program before, the topic actually before the program began, and I'm just bubbling over with all that we've covered as a review or as an outline. And I want you to first begin in your journey. There's a very interesting story you talked about, which is very connected to your marriage, to your relationship, about the power of prayer and relationship. Begin the program by telling us about that.
So many times we confuse prayer with a way to get the things that we need. And it is not wrong to ask God for our needs, but prayer is a lot more than that. And confuse Christianity with a set of rules and forms. What they are good, doctrines are excellent, but Christianity is a lot more than that. And I'm going to give an example or a couple of examples. For instance, I was raised in a church, very good church, around 250, 270 people, but very conservative. And that was the way in Romania. I remember there was an apple tree in front of the church, and children, between Sabbath school and worship, we had about 15 minutes break. Children would go under and pick up apples. And the adults from the church would come and say, hey, you cannot do that because it's harvesting and we don't work on Sabbath. To pick up apples, it's harvesting. And so I had a friend, my best friend, Pizzi. His name was Daniel, but we would call him Pizzi. His father was the janitor. He would clean the church, fix things in the church. And they lived by the parsonage, by the pastor's house.
Okay.
And he would call Pizzi and say, I told you not to let the kids pick up apples and work on Sabbath, because you let them do that and you are older among them, I'm going to punish you. And he would take Pizzi inside the house, and we would hear pang, pang, and Pizzi screaming, please, please don't hit me. They will never harvest apples on Sabbath again. And kids were running and crying. I was upset. Why would Pizzi be punished for what we did? So I would knock in the door. Brother Abraham, that was Pizzi's father, leave him alone. He would open the door, grab me, pull me inside, close the door. Inside there was a different picture. Pizzi was on the couch, smiling and screaming, please don't hit me. I will never let them pick up apples on Sabbath.
Okay.
And Brother Abraham was hitting the door with his belt.
So he really wasn't beating his
He was
son.
not beating Pizzi, no.
Okay, he just wanted people to think that.
And he told me, get on the couch and start screaming. So I got on the couch, please leave him alone. We will never pick up apples. And then he would explain me, don't tell them anything. But this is harvesting. Do you really want to work on Sabbath? And so that's what I thought. That's what religion is all about. And yes, we should keep Sabbath, absolutely. But what is Sabbath about? We should pray. What is prayer about?
Okay.
We should keep all the doctrines, go to church. But what is that all about? So I'm going to give in a nutshell what I think it's all about.
Okay. But you also began with a story. You've been married now how many years?
And that's where I'm going.
Okay. All right.
So what is prayer about?
All right.
I was 6.5, and Dana, my wife, was 3 years old. And she would come to church, and I put my eyes on her, and I said to my sister, you see that girl? I really like her. I'm going to marry her. And my sister laughed and made fun, and she said, you are only 6.5. You don't even know what love is. You are going to change your mind 1,000,000 times. You have no clue what you talk about. I said, no, really, I like her. Well, I kept watching her and kept watching her. And when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I was in the choir singing tenor, and she was singing alto. Instead of listening to the pastor, I was watching her at alto. My mouth was wide open as it is when you go to the dentist. And I would watch her eyes and then close my eyes and try to picture them. And watch her cheeks and close my eyes and try to picture them. And then watch her chins and her lips and her face to be able to go home. And when I close my eyes, to be able to see her again. And I would dream her in the night. And when we started to date, I would write poetry, and I am not a poet. And I would meet her, and I would forget all the poetry, even my name. When I would see her, I would say, wow. And I would forget everything, what I wanted to say, let's go and eat somewhere, or I would just forget even my name. And she would say, are you okay? I said, yes. Say a word. Oh, man, I'm just happy to be with you. I would spend every second with you. And we have been married 30 years. And I'm handicapped without her. I cannot function. I cannot sleep or eat well without her.
You mean even after 30 years?
Even after, more than 30 years ago.
Wow.
And so what is religion? What is Christianity? What is prayer about? It is okay to ask the Lord for our needs.
In other words, what makes your relationship with her so powerful? Okay, that's I think where you're headed.
If all it was about was, honey, would you cook for me? Honey, would you do that for me? Honey, and then say, I love you, and that's it. Where I'm going, what if we had such a passion for God, such a thirst for God, that in His presence we would forget our foreclosure, we would forget our cancer, we would forget our job loss. Not that those are small problems, but when we see Him, we would just open our mouth and say, wow, isn't He wonderful? And say, Lord, like David in Psalm 63, I want you. More than life, more than food, more than water, more than jobs, more than health, I want you. And when I'm with you, I forget everything else. I forget my problems. You are so wonderful.
So what I'm hearing you say then, when we understand who God really is, all the other things that we consider great importance, like you said, foreclosure, losing our job, focusing on our bad health, those things begin to shrink when we compare them to who God is.
In fact, it is a little funny that we keep telling God our problem and how to fix it and when to fix it, like He doesn't know. God doesn't need to be informed. He knew everything before you were born, every day, every problem. And He had 1,000 solutions before He had a problem. And instead of just, it's very hard to resist the temptation to go to prayer without asking. Instead of asking, just go and seek Him. I always tell people, God doesn't UPS blessings. God doesn't ship blessings. We ask Him to ship blessings. He brings them along. We need to seek Him. When He comes, there are blessings with Him.
I like that. I like that. You know, a lot of times people pray and they say, Lord, send,
Give,
do. But the Lord, as you say, He doesn't send, He brings them with Him. His presence, what I'm hearing you say, is the blessing. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
And I'm going to go into it. For instance, I was in university. And in that time in Romania, to be accepted in school, it was extremely difficult. For instance, in construction university, there were 10 seats. That's the way they call them. Basically 10 openings that year.
Okay.
and 987 students competing on 10 seats. So basically, it was not good enough to get an A. You had to be in the GPA among top 10. For instance, if top 10 had 3.98 and you had 3.97, but you're the 11th, you are out.
Wow.
So I was accepted among the top 10. I was the fourth one. And then, because I didn't go to school on Saturdays, we did have school Saturdays, they called me and they said, we are going to expel you. And as a rule, they told me, there is no God, we are a communist country. If you did something else, if you missed school for some other reasons, you would be excused. But for religious reasons, there is no forgiveness. And the law says that you would be expelled without any right to ever register in any school for the rest of your life. So basically, that was the end of my education.
So they were ready to shut the door on you because you stood with God.
Exactly.
All right.
So I started to pray, Lord, please save my education, Lord. And I pleaded with God, and I prayed day and night, and I prayed for several days. And then, as we good Christians do, I went there, tried to solve it myself, to talk to the dean, to talk to the... They just showed me the door. Get out. We don't believe in God in this country. And then the dean told me, even if I did, if I would let you keep Saturday, I would lose my job and my freedom. Get out. There is no God. And then he said, and there is no God that could save you from a communist government. And so I prayed. I even fasted, and I never fast, not because it's not good, but because I am hungry always. I can eat 10 times a day, and I'm still hungry. And so I eat all the time, and I'm hungry, and I never gain a pound. So I even fasted, and I even had faith that God would answer. Nothing happened. They told me, you will be expelled this Saturday. If you don't come to school, it's your last day of education in your life. And I called my dad, and I said, Dad, I am praying, and I am losing my education, and God doesn't answer my prayer. And my dad said, son, there is no honest prayer that would go without an answer. But then he said it would be wrong to assume that God answers the way you want, in the time you want.
Okay, I don't want to run past that. Sometimes people want God to answer the way they want.
In the time they want. They even tell God how to do it.
All right.
Like,
so if I'm following so far, you're saying, Lord, answer this prayer, keep the doors open, but this is how I want you to do it. Oh, okay.
And my father said, have you tried to kind of check with God, to tune your prayer with God's will, and to make sure that you ask the right thing? I said, well, didn't he want me to be educated? Oh, yes, that's not the point. But he said, you don't listen, do you? He said, what are you praying for? I don't want to lose my education. And he said, well, who do you love first? Who comes first in your life? I said, Jesus. I said, really? That's what you like to think about yourself? I said, no, Jesus comes first in my life. He said, okay, so what are you praying for? I said, education. He said, okay, then I ask you again, who do you like? Who do you love? Who comes first in your life? Jesus. And then what are you praying for? I said, education. He said, son, you don't listen to yourself. Do you want me to repeat again? I said, no, I heard you. He said, you heard me, you don't hear yourself. I said, what do you mean? He said, who do you love more than anything? Jesus. More than education, yes. Then what do you pray for? Education. Then you love education, son. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, if you don't consider education garbage, I consider all things a loss, garbage, then you are not a Christian. And
Wow.
my dad told me, if you don't give up mother and father and son and daughter and job and education, you are not worthy to be my disciple. And my father said, son, you got to make up your mind. I said, do you mean that God wants me to lose my education? I said, no, I did not say that. God wants you to put him first, and then let's talk about education. But first, you need to learn the first lesson first. You have wrong priorities, son. And he hung up on me. So I called him back. I said, you don't care, you hang up on me? He said, oh, I care more than you know, but you kind of don't listen to me. And he said, I tell you again, I ask you again, he said, who do you love more than anything in your life? More than life, more than anything? Jesus. Then you have your answer. What should you pray for then? I said, Dad, what do you mean? If you love Jesus, what should you pray for? I was quiet for a few seconds. I started to get it. How could I pray for Jesus? He said, what should you desire, son? What should you desire, education or Jesus? I said, Jesus. Then pray for relationship, son. And he said, God heard you. You prayed for a whole week, you even fasted. He got it. He knows your problem, and He is able to solve it.
That's right.
He is a good God, powerful God. My God is strong. And my father said, don't tell him what to do and how to do it. Leave him alone.
You know, at this point, I don't want to run by because there are a lot of people that are listening and watching this program that we pray for things oftentimes. But what I'm hearing you say is if God owns everything, knows everything, understands our need, we have to understand our priority. And I want to just kind of do this illustration. I love the Lord. He's first and foremost. But what am I praying for? Education. I love the Lord. What am I praying for? Education. Your Father's saying pray for relationship. And everything that's in harmony with that relationship, God will respond to.
Exactly.
So he's in essence, he's also saying you have to even be willing to give up that education if it conflicts with relationship.
That's what he said, actually.
Now, that's a hard one because a lot of people say, well, what about all the things that are important to me? And what I'm hearing you say is the most important thing is relationship. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly.
Okay.
Basically, I remember him in a different instance telling me, whatever comes between you and Jesus, your relationship with Him, that's your God. If it's family, that's who you worship. If it's job, if it's your life, your health, that's who you worship. He said you should love God more than the other things, and then you are able to love the other things properly, when you love God first. And he said anything else is selfish love. When you love God more than anything, that starts being godly love. And so, going back to the story, he said to me, son, pray for relationship. And then he said something extremely big that I did not get then, but I am getting now. He said, when you have a relationship with Him, you are going to know Him enough to have peace about the way He answers, about your education and everything else. He said, you don't have peace because you don't have a relationship. You don't have peace because you don't have a relationship. Because you don't know Him enough, and because you don't know Him enough, you don't trust Him enough, you just say you trust Him. And he said, how could you trust somebody that you don't spend time with?
And how could you be fearful and lacking peace if you really know someone and you say they care about everything in your life? You know, that's huge because there are a lot of people that don't have peace. They pray and you see them come to church, whether on Sabbath or whatever day they go to church, you see them and they look worried, they look stressed. How are you doing? Oh, I'm just barely hanging on, I'm waiting for God. In essence, what I'm hearing you say is, if you really had a connection with Him and knew Him, then here's the text. He said He will keep us in perfect peace if our mind is stayed on Him.
That's what my father said. And he said, those who know God, they have, that's what he said, perfect peace. Regardless what they go through. Peace not based on a good life, but based on relationship.
Wow.
And then my father told me these very words. He said, actually, I put it in my words. I don't remember word by word.
Right.
But that was the message. He said, son, God may want you to finish that school. But He doesn't value school, and He cannot use that school for Him as long as school comes first. And he said, why don't you worry about relationship and let Him worry for school? And he said, you are safer to worry for God, and it's safer to let Him worry for you. He will do a better job taking care of you than you do taking care of you.
Those are huge. I mean, those are huge points. God will do a better job of taking care of us than we can do of taking care of ourselves, because He sees farther than we can see. The point I want to bring in, I just want to also remind our audience, because we do have a special offer tonight, which is along the lines of what Pastor Goya is talking about, prayer. And I want to let you know that if you'd like a copy of this book, Teach Us How to Pray, or Teach Us to Pray, call us at 618-627-4651, or free offer at 3abn.org for a copy of this book, Teach Us to Pray, and surely we'll get that to you. Before I give you the information about the questions, I want to dive into that again, because although you're a preacher, I'm a preacher, what we're hearing, and oftentimes we say this to our members or our friends, we say, don't worry, we are praying for you. And there are people that sometimes take their prayers to God, or their problems to God in prayer, but as soon as the prayer is done, they take their problems back.
We'll talk about it. That's powerful.
Okay.
That's powerful.
Okay.
Actually, it's extremely important how we present our problems to the Lord. But back to the story. After I talked to my dad, I was kind of quiet for a few hours and started to reflect on what he said and he started to get home. So I knelt by my bed. I remember that day in the morning when I went to school, I tried to talk to them, and they showed me the door and said, "Get out! Don't ever come back for religious reasons."
You were thinking about that, or that actually happened?
That actually happened the morning before I talked to my dad.
Okay.
In the afternoon, but in the morning I tried to solve it myself.
Okay.
And they showed me the door and they asked me to leave. And the secretary told me, "You better compromise. You better come to school on Saturday, and you can sit there in your classroom and in your mind worship the Lord. Nobody knows what is in your mind, and you don't lose education." And I said, "Listen, I learned something from my dad. If you compromise today, compromise tomorrow, soon enough there will be no clear line. Everything is going to be a compromise." And I said, "I cannot do that. If God wants to save me, He's able to." And she said, "There is no God. Nobody can save you from a communist government." Well, that afternoon I talked to my dad and I told him what she said. And my father said, well. They say there is no God. You see, son, what you should pray for? After you pray for relationship, pray that they will know that there is a God. Don't pray for self. Don't be selfish." And I contemplated and I started to pray again. And I knelt by my bed that evening. And it was Thursday night, I remember. And I started to pray and I prayed and I had peace. Because instead of praying, "Lord, save my education," I said, "Lord, there are some people who lost their life for you. I'm willing to lose my education." And it was hard to say it because I didn't know what was going to happen next day.
Right.
I said, "I'm willing to lose my education." But this is what I am praying. Help me mean what I say when I say I love you. Oh, how I love Jesus. Many times it's just words.
Right.
Help me mean it. Help me love you more than education, love you more than life, love you more than anything, to the point that I'm willing to lose the other things and not look back ever. And joyfully be glad that I can do that for you. And I said, "Help me seek you." And secondly, I want to forget self. Help those people know you too. Help those people be saved. And then about education, do whatever you think is right because you know the future.
Right.
And I said, "Help me accept it joyfully, not complain about it." In that moment, though I have been praying the whole week and fasting and had faith and no peace, in that moment, I could sense God's presence so strong in the room that I was afraid to open my eyes or to keep talking. And it was like, "I heard you and I know exactly, and don't worry, just trust me." And I was afraid to open my eyes and I could physically sense it, and I kept quiet for a few seconds. And then I started, I don't know how, but instantly started to whistle a Romanian song that is, "I am a son of the king, and I am happy, and I know I can trust him." And I was whistling the song, and I went to bed, and I had peace. Friday morning, I go to school, my last day of school before being expelled. The lady, her name was Radu. She was the school secretary. She has been a secretary for over 20 years. She came to me, the lady that said the day before, "You better compromise. There is no God who can save you from a communist government." She came to me, and she was literally blue, pale, yellow. And she said, "Pavel," and she looked into my eyes, "I want you to be honest. Do you know Ceausescu, the president, the dictator?" I said, "No." "Do you know anybody in the government?" I said, "No." "All I know about government, when I don't have money to buy a flower to my wife, in front of the palace, there are thousands of roses. I go there and pick a rose, and it's for free." And she laughed, and she said, "You don't know anybody?" I said, "No. All I know is watching them on TV." He said, "Then there is a God." I said, "I know, I told you, but why? Why do you say that?" And she said, "Today, Ceausescu, the president of the country, gave a law to save the economy. There will be no more schools in the whole country. Starting today, no more schools on Saturdays." And she said, "No lights, no electricity, no heat, no AC, nothing. He wants to save the economy. If that law came," she said, "next week, you would have been expelled." And she said, "Isn't that amazing that your God would give a law in the whole country just to save your education?"
Wow.
And I said, "Listen, that's amazing, and I don't deserve it, but I think he answered the prayer not about my education, actually, but about you knowing him."
About you knowing him. That's
because
huge.
I said, "That's the prayer that I know that he answered last night, not the prayers before."
That's huge.
And she said, "Well, with my prayer, actually, he answered your prayers from before too."
You know what? You made some points that I just want to go ahead and emphasize and to give some, I wouldn't even say add anything to it, but you could begin to see that pattern in Scripture. one of the examples. Let's start with Abraham and his son Isaac. If Isaac meant more to Abraham than God meant to Abraham, then God would have allowed Isaac to be sacrificed. But because God meant more to Abraham than Isaac meant to Abraham, he was willing to lose Isaac if that's what God wanted.
And at the end, he didn't lose him.
No, but that's my point.
Exactly.
You have to be willing. You said it a moment ago. You have to be willing to lose what you have if that's what God wants.
And sometimes we are so desperate that we are afraid that we lose things. God is not in the business of making our life miserable. And whatever we want to save, that's what we lose. And whatever we are willing to lose, that's actually basically what we save. It's what the Bible says, that who loses his life will save it. And
that's right. And who saves his life shall lose it. In other words, if you're trying to save something because it's what you want rather than being willing to lose it, you're going to end up losing it anyway.
What an amazing blessing. Instead of worrying for things, to go in God's presence, to seek him and to have a relationship and to behold him and just spend time with him.
So if I were to summarize what you just said, you said relationship before things.
Exactly.
Relationship before people.
Seek the giver before you seek the gifts.
Seek the giver before you seek the gift. Because when you see that again, and then you mentioned to the lady who said, do you know anybody in the government? You mentioned something to her that was so vitally important. She said, God answered your prayers to save your education, but you said, God answered this prayer that you may know him. And that is what happened with Daniel in the lion's den. What did Nebuchadnezzar say the next morning?
Exactly. Powerful example.
Okay. He said, there is no God like the God of Daniel.
Amen.
See, he answered the prayer of Daniel so that Nebuchadnezzar could know him.
And this is what I
Wow.
think. As long as we put things first, we limit God actually. We want him to answer, but we are those that limit his answer. And when we learn to put God first, then God can work. Basically, we cease being selfish. There's nothing wrong to ask God for help, but we should put him first. And just then, God can give us things because we put him first and we allow him to teach us how to use the things that he gives us. What I'm trying to say is not even safe for God to give us all we ask before we learn to let him be in control, to let him be first.
That's right. That's huge. So people that are worried are often focusing on the things rather than focusing on God. Just talk about, for a brief moment, what about when God says no? Let's talk about that for a moment, because there's some people that say, nobody wants no, but what happens when God says no?
Well, I'm going to give you two powerful examples.
Okay.
Two situations that are totally different. It seems in one God said no, and in one God said yes. What can I tell people that they prayed and it seems that God didn't answer? They prayed for a son, for a daughter, for a wife, for a husband, and nevertheless they lost the loved one. God didn't answer the prayer? What if I was them praying for that family member? So I'm going to give two examples before I try to give an answer. I got a phone call. I was in a camp meeting in Wisconsin. That's about 7 years ago, more or less. And it was one of our family friends that we have known each other from generation to generation. Basically, grandparents grew up together, parents grew up together, we grew up together, our children grew up together. We go a long way. And she called me and she said, Pavel, I want you to come and pray for me. For the last 2 years, I've been weak, but I thought because I work so many hours a week and I don't eat and I don't sleep, I'm just tired. Well, this week I went to the doctor and he said, if you came a few years ago, I could have saved you. But now it's too late. You basically have only 2-3 days of life. The cancer took over your entire body. There is nothing inside that is good. And the doctor said, I am amazed that you walk. And she said, I want you to come, anoint me and pray for me. Well, I went to the conference president and I asked him, wonderful, godly man. Oh, I just loved him. What a leader. What a humble, godly leader. And he said to me, nevertheless, a good man, and he said to me, Pavel, I hope you realize that you cannot save her. You have no power to heal her. I said, I do know that. Then you cannot go there. Jesus himself didn't go. He said, go home at this hour, your servant will be healed. And in that hour, the servant was healed. Jesus didn't have to go. He just said the word.
He spoke the word.
And he said, who do you think you are to go there? He said, if I excuse you from camp meeting, everybody's going to find the reason. He said, you can pray for her here. God doesn't need you there. If God wants, he can heal her. So I heard you. So I started to pray for her. And I knew she would call me back because she wanted to buy plane tickets for me to fly from Wisconsin to Georgia. And I started to pray, Lord, would you please heal her? And Sunday, the president of the conference told me, Sunday, when we finish camp meeting, you can go. I'll give you a few days, no problem. Well, I started to pray, Lord, would you heal her? Please, Lord, would you heal her, please? And God did not answer. In fact, I would feel, after praying a few hours, that she will die. And I got so upset and so hurt and so frustrated that I started to pray even more. And that night, literally, I prayed the whole night until 6 a.m. with not a second of sleep. Trying to twist God's arm is like sometimes we even fast to try to manipulate God. We use even faith. If you believe, God has to do it. Faith is not to manipulate God, do what you want. It's to manipulate you, accept what he wants, you know?
That's right. That's a very good point.
And so we use fasting, persistence, faith, all this stuff to get God do what we want, instead of trying to tune our prayer with his will, you know? So I kind of prayed the whole night, pushing God, and I had no answer and no peace. In the morning, I had to go for breakfast. I would not miss a meal, never, you know, and then to go to my duties, you know. So in the morning, I did my devotional. So I opened the Bible at the regular place where where my daily study was, where I stopped the day before.
Right.
Guess what? What was next in my Bible study was about Moses pleading with God, let me see the country. And the Lord said, no, you will die. I said, are you trying to say something? I was so frustrated. I closed the Bible. I said, I'm not going to read today. Then I opened the book of Acts to continue my study. And it was about Stephen being stoned. Oh, I got so frustrated. I closed the spirit of prophecy, and I went to the big tent, and Elder Reed was talking about end-time events. And he said, as I entered the pavilion, he said, and before Jesus comes, men will be called to rest. Oh, I got so upset. I turned around, I said, I'm not going to go there. I went to my cabin, and I said, I'm going to take a nap and don't even pray. And I was upset. I got busy with my duties. And then I tried to pray more, Lord, please, I know you can, like 15, give her 15 more years. You know, like the king, you know, in the Bible, Hezekiah.
Right.
Give her 15 more years. And the Lord would say, no, leave me alone. Basically, who do you think you are? I am God.
Right.
You know? Well, that night, I was not able to sleep. I knew she's going to call me. I didn't know what to tell her. Oh, you'll die. What could I tell her? In the morning, around 6:30 a.m., Greg Budd knocked in my door.
Yes, Greg Budd.
He's the one who did editing, writing for my book. I recorded the story. He did all the English and editing and writing. And he said, Pavel, Review and Herald wants the last chapter. Is it ready? I said, yeah, it's ready. Give it to me. I said, no. He said, open the door. Give me the last chapter. I need to do editing on it. I said, now leave me alone. He said, Pavel, we know each other for a long time. Open the door. I didn't want him to see me. I was crying. I cried the whole night. I prayed. I was frustrated. We don't acknowledge, but sometimes we are frustrated with God. I was frustrated that he would not give her life, you know. I knew that God could do it. I could not understand why. So, and who am I to understand why, you know? I need to trust him without understanding. That's faith. When you understand, there's not faith, it's science, you know. And so I opened the door. He said, what is wrong with you? You cry? I said, yeah. So I told him the story. He said, and you teach other people how to pray? You should not teach prayer anybody before you learn. I said, what do you mean? He said, shouldn't you let God be God? Instead of praying for life, shouldn't you pray that God is going to give her comfort and that his will may be done like Jesus? Jesus said, take the cup, nevertheless, may your will. Shouldn't you say that and mean it? I said, yes, you are right. He said, you better. I said, what am I going to tell her? You better ask God what to tell her instead of asking God for life.
Right.
I said, okay. I gave him the last chapter, locked the door, back to prayer. I said, Lord, okay, she will die. would you give her comfort? Would you please help her accept it, not me, but her? Give her peace. Because she's going to die and she has 2 children and my children's age and a husband. And would you tell me what to tell her when she calls? Because what can I say? You are going to die? Well, when I accepted God's will, I sensed that God answered. And I didn't know how. But I felt good to go back and do my devotional. So I opened the Bible where I left it when I was angry. And it was that God said to Moses, I will not let you go, but I'm going to show you the country. Basically, give you comfort.
Give you comfort.
And then I finished my study from the Bible. I opened the Spirit of Prophecy, Book of Acts. And he says that Stephen, God opened heaven and allowed him to see heaven. And he saw Jesus on the throne at God's right hand, you know. I said, well, are you saying something to me? And so I finished studying, and I got busy doing my duties. She did not call. Her husband called. I said, you know, she wanted to call you, but before she entered in a coma, and she's in coma. She's gone. She's almost dead. She's pale. She can hardly breathe. And the doctor said it's going to be a matter of a few hours. Well, he called me next morning. I said, well, she died at 2:15 a.m. last night. And he said, there is something that I cannot explain. I'm just puzzled. I'm confused. I said, what is it? Well, she was pale. And around 2:15, she woke up. She opened her eyes. She looked up. And she was physically bright, physically glowing, literally light. And he said, she was talking to somebody. I said, wow. Wow. Thank you. Yes, no problem. And she died. I said, I don't get it. I said, man, let me tell you what happened, because I know. I said, this is what I think. The Lord showed to her, himself to her. I said, my daughter, you will die. And for you it's going to be a second until second coming. But let me show you what happens after that second. And Jesus, in his grace, pulled the curtain and showed her heaven. And what words cannot describe and human mind cannot grasp, that's what she saw. And she said, whoa! And I said, now, are you okay with it? I said, why took you so long? Kind of, I'm putting words, you know. Yes, I mean, Ellen White, when she was in vision, she was a good wife and a good mother. She would not want to come back. She said, can I stay here?
Right.
It's amazing, you know, what God has for us, and not for a few years, but for eternity. And we focus on these years and forget eternity, you know. And so basically I told him, I said, I think. That's what the Lord said. Now, are you okay? He said, yes, thank you, thank you. And then she died, and she had peace and joy.
You know, that's a powerful story. As you're walking through that, I'm seeing a story that I'm completely connected to that associates along the very same way. My sister-in-law that was married to my brother, they lived in the Virgin Islands. Well, he still lives there in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, and the same thing happened. His wife had cancer, very, very small melanoma on her foot, and didn't get the proper treatment. And at 34 years old, we were all praying for her, and she died. In the hospital room, she was declared dead. And the nurses and doctors there, the family of 7 stood by the bedside. My brother was crying, and 20 minutes after she was declared dead, she opened her eyes and called my brother to her side. This is 20 minutes after she's declared dead. They disconnect all the tubes and took her glasses off, and she saw the clock across the room, and she said, well, okay, if we do this correctly, I could be out of here in 15 minutes. This is 20 minutes after she was declared dead. They disconnected everything. So my brother came to her crying. He said, we prayed for you to be healed. And she said to him, I have been. She said, the Lord has allowed me, he's allowing me to pass away now so that I would not go back out in the world. He knows what's best. I'll see you in the morning. I'll see you in the resurrection. And she went to every one of her family members, including her mom and dad. They relayed the story to me. This is a powerful thing. They relayed the story to me. They said we would not have believed it if we didn't see it with our own eyes. And she said, even though she wasn't healed, she said, the Lord answered our prayers. I'm going to be laid to rest. He knows what's best. I'll see you in the morning. And then after 15 minutes, after she hugged everyone and kissed everyone, she lay down, closed her eyes, and that was it. And for the same reason, her daughter was only 9 years old when she died, my niece. So I know what you're saying. And she said to us, it'll be all over. And then, that is, it'll be okay, because everything is fine. I'll see you in the morning. She said these exact words, I'm going to rest until Jesus comes. I'll see you in the morning, her exact words. She passed away at 34 years old. So I know what you're saying. And so there was such a peace over her. And the nurse said, I have been a nurse for 26 years, and I've never seen anything like this ever in my life. You know what she resolved? She resolved to put her life in the Lord's hands. And whatever was in His will, she finally came to the conclusion that this is God's will. I'll be just fine. I'll go to rest. I'll see you when Jesus comes. I'll be all right. That's powerful.
We don't have peace because we don't know God and because we don't trust Him.
Wow.
And we focus too much on these things and this life. It's not that it's not important, but I think we should focus more on God's eternity, you know, on God's presence and His will. Anyway, so God did answer prayer.
That's right.
But in a different way. And what is amazing is that God worked to give her peace with it. And that's what happens when we allow God to be God. Then I'm going to give the second example. People who have read the book, it's called One Miracle After Another, they know the story. But the story is called Mene Mene. When I was...
What's it called?
Mene Mene.
Okay.
M-E-N-E.
Okay.
Twice. Mene Mene. That's the nickname of a handicapped kid that was in the city where I was a pastor in Romania. He could hardly walk. He could not talk. He was a stutterer, horrible stutterer. He was, you could not understand the word of what he said. That's the reason they call him Mene, Mene, Mene. You know.
Because of stuttering.
And he would cross the street, and he would not look left and right, just start running. And one car hit him at the train station one time, another car hit him at the market one time. He didn't die. He somehow escaped both times. Then I hit him.
Then you hit him.
Yes. It was a gas crisis, and we had a ratio of 10 gallons a month, 40 liters a month. And if you used those 40 liters, you would not drive, you would stay home. And we did find ways to drive a little more, like I would buy from the factory that was painting wagons for trains, I would buy thinner that they used in color, in paint.
Like paint thinner.
And then I talked to a chemistry teacher, and he told me the formula, what to mix it with, you know. And it's a long story, but I would mix it and make gas and still drive the car. But it was kind of difficult. And so I had to go to the pastor's meeting the next day, and I had to go and get my 10 gallons for that month. And there was a long line at the gas station. Long line. Excuse me. You would have to wait in the line to get your 10 gallons. And so I go to the gas station, and as I get close to the gas station, the road makes a curve to the right and one to the left, like an S. And then you can see the gas station. Well, there was a kind of traffic jam. I've never seen traffic jam there. I didn't know why, so I kind of look, and there was a horse-pulled wagon ahead of all the cars. The wagon was loaded with wood, and the horse could hardly pull the wagon. It was so heavy. And the cars could not pass because they could not see what comes from the other direction because of the curve. And it was just two-way road. One way would go, one would come, very narrow.
I could see the horse now pulling the wagon.
And so everybody was waiting to pass the curve, and then when that road is straight again, to be able to pass the wagon. So I put it in I had a stick shift. It was called a Renault 10.
Yeah, Renault, yeah.
Okay. I put it in the second gear, and really slow. I mean, a horse-pull wagon goes slow. As soon as we passed the curve, car started to pass the wagon. And I got there behind the horse-pulled wagon. I passed it, and then put it in the third, and in the fourth, And from the other direction was a truck coming. And when I got parallel with the truck, right behind the truck, the kid jumped into my bumper. He was not 20 or 10 or 5 feet ahead. He was, bang, right into my bumper. I didn't even have time to see him. I hit him. I'm sorry for the sound.
That's okay.
He went up. When he came down, I already pushed the brake, still hit him again. Second time, he hit the blacktop, and my car went a few meters, I don't know how long, in the brake, you know, and then stopped. I was not driving fast. Probably I was about 55 kilometers, 60 kilometers per hour, because I didn't have time. I switched from the second to third, and just when I put it in the fourth, I hit him. So anyway, there was blood coming from his nose, from his mouth, from his ear here, and they didn't wait for the ambulance. In Romania, it's better to call Pizza Hut than to call the ambulance. You have better chances for them to come fast, you know. Until the ambulance would come, you are done.
Unbelievable.
And so they put him in a different car. My car had to stay there for the police, you know, and they took him to hospital. After the police came, they said, well, we have enough witnesses. We know that he didn't look left and right, that he jumped behind the truck in front of your car, that you're not speeding. Go home. You have no fault. Well, that was not my problem. My problem was that he would be safe, that he would not die.
Right.
So I drove to hospital. Well, they told me that they flew him to the next city that is bigger, to Caransebeș. That was a bigger hospital, because they could not save him. So I got in the car, and I drove about 24, 25 kilometers, I don't remember, I think it's a little more than that, to that city. When I went there were a few doctors, I would say about 2-3 doctors, 2-3 nurses. And there was like a window, but there was no window, like a piece of glass with a light behind the glass, and the X-ray were on that glass. And they were looking to the X-ray. And they said, brain hemorrhage, broken spine somewhere here, broken spine somewhere here, in 2 places. Broken right lung, and the lung was broken, and it was flooded with blood that he could not breathe. He was kind of in his own blood. He could not, you know, breath. There was no much breath, you know. Broken hip, broken arm, and broken leg. And while I was there, the machines went teet, and there was no more blood pressure, no more heartbeat. He was gone. So they took him from machines, and they covered him. And I kneeled down by his bed, and I started to pray, Lord, please, please. And the doctor said, Mr. Goya, are you okay? I said, yeah. I think your mind doesn't function well, sir. I said, why? He's dead. Why would you pray for him when he's dead? Pray for him when he's alive. I said, well, I don't know. God impressed me to pray for him. And he said, listen, you pastors, you are not normal. You are fanatical. You think that anybody can bring... I am a doctor. I can tell you there is nobody on heaven or earth that could bring him back. He is dead, and he is all broken. Look to these X-rays. They said, well, you are so wrong. God, if God wants, he can bring him back.
That's right.
He said, there is no God that could ever bring him back. Leave me alone. You pastors, you religious people, you da-da-da-da. He went, oh, no. Well, I went home, and I could not sleep that night. And my wife and I prayed the whole night. We did not pray for a miracle. We just, in fact, to be honest, in that little town that we lived, very little, called Oțelul Roșu, translated is the red iron, because there was a big factory for steel. And
the red iron?
Red iron.
Okay.
It was a steel factory.
Okay.
And very little town, everybody knew everybody. They would know what you ate, kind of. They would start talking next day right away. The Adventist pastor killed a poor, handicapped kid, you know. And what we prayed, we said, Lord, I would rather die myself than to affect your work and your name, than people criticizing you and the church. And I said, do whatever it takes, but don't let your name be trashed because of this accident. If you want to take my life, do whatever it takes, just do something so the city will not be affected, and these people will know that there is a God.
Wow.
And my wife and I could not sleep. We would try to go to sleep, and I would see the accident all over again. So we prayed the whole night. We didn't really know what was going to happen. No clue. Next morning, I went to hospital. he was, Mene was in the room, sitting in the bed, saying, I'm hungry. What is wrong with you? Give me food. Stop talking and looking at me. Give me food. He was talking, and he was not a stutterer anymore.
He was alive. He was not stuttering. He was talking.
He was talking.
Wow.
And the doctors, the whole hospital, like the room was crowded. I don't know if all the doctors, but
right.
several doctors and nurses were there, and they had, this is the X-ray from yesterday and from today. Brain hemorrhage, no brain hemorrhage. Broken spine, no broken spine. Broken hip, no broken hip. However, broken arm, broken leg, broken leg.
Okay. Now I'm going to take the time from you to hold on to give the viewers and listeners the rest of the story in just about a minute or so.
Okay.
Okay, because this is huge. I don't know if you're following this very carefully. The young man that was killed by Pastor Pavel the day before is now sitting up in his hospital bed. When we come back after the break, we're going to give you an opportunity to get a copy of this book, Teach Us to Pray. Friends, we're learning that relationship is more important than things, and praying for God's will to be done is more important than trying to manipulate the Lord. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few moments, and the stories are going to continue coming.